Welcome to the Health Headliner podcast by Tudu Digital. Our content is informational only and not medical advice. Please consult your provider. Now, let's dive into today's headlines.
If you're anything like me, you've probably felt that whiplash from all the conflicting health advice out there.
Oh, definitely.
One day something's bad, the next it's good. And few things have been caught in that crossfire more than, well, the egg.
Yeah, the humble egg. It's had quite a journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Demonized for cholesterol, then okay, then maybe not. It's honestly hard to keep track. Makes you wonder what's actually true.
And that confusion, that's really what we want to dig into today.
Okay.
Our mission, you could say, in this deep dive, is to slice through that noise. We want to uncover the real story about what affects our bad cholesterol, low-density lipoprotein.
Right.
And we're focusing on a brand new study, a really rigorous one, that tries to separate the effect of cholesterol in food from saturated fat.
That's the key distinction, isn't it? People lump them together.
They really do. And it muddies the waters when we talk about heart health. So separating them is crucial.
And to help us make sense of it all, we've got what? Some
Yeah.
solid sources?
We do. We're looking at a major health news piece summarizing it, and also the actual scientific paper. It's published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Very reputable.
Great. So if you've ever stood in the dairy aisle wondering about eggs, hopefully we can bring some clarity today. Let's jump in.
Let's do it.
So this confusion isn't new, right? Eggs have been debated for decades.
For a long, long time.
There's a quote from an exercise scientist, Jonathan Buckley, that really sums it up. He said something like, eggs have long been unfairly cracked by outdated dietary advice.
Cracked. Nice.
Yeah, he pointed out they're unique, high cholesterol, sure, but low in saturated fat. But it's that cholesterol number that always made people nervous.
Exactly. And that quote perfectly sets the stage for why this new study is so important. It was designed specifically to untangle that exact issue.
So what was the precise goal?
The objective was super specific. To directly look at the independent effects. What does dietary cholesterol itself do to low-density lipoprotein levels versus what does saturated fat do separately?
Okay, so not just looking at diets broadly, but really isolating those two things. How did they do that?
They used a really smart method, a randomized controlled crossover design.
Okay, break that down for us. What does crossover mean here?
It means each person in the study acted as their own control group. So instead of having one group eat diet A and another eat diet B, every participant went through all the different diets being tested.
Oh, I see. So you compare how the same person reacts to each different diet.
Precisely. It gets rid of a lot of the noise you get from comparing different groups of people, makes the findings much more robust. It's really considered a gold standard in this kind of research.
That sounds really solid. So who are the people involved? Were they typical adults?
Yeah, they recruited 61 healthy adults aged between 18 and 60. And importantly, everyone started with low-density lipoprotein cholesterol levels below 3.5 millimoles per liter.
Which is rough.
About 135 micrograms per deciliter. So basically, they were starting from a healthy cholesterol baseline. 48 people ended up completing all the different diet phases.
Okay, 48 completers. And you said each person did each diet. For how long?
For 5 weeks each. That's generally long enough to see meaningful changes in blood lipid levels.
Right. Okay, so walk us through these 3 diets. How do they manage to isolate cholesterol from saturated fat? What was diet number 1?
Diet 1 was the control diet. Think of it as mirroring a typical Western diet. So high in both cholesterol, around 600 milligrams a day, and also high in saturated fat, about 12% of their daily energy.
Okay, kind of the baseline standard diet for comparison. And they limited eggs on that one.
Yeah, just 1 egg per week on the control diet to keep it fitting that typical high-sat fat profile without too much egg cholesterol confusing things.
Got it. Then the second diet must be the interesting one for egg lovers.
That's the egg diet. Also high in cholesterol again, around 600 milligrams a day, mainly achieved by eating 2 eggs daily. But, and this is the crucial part, it was low in saturated fat, only about 6% of daily energy.
How did they manage that? Eating eggs, but keeping saturated fat low.
They focused on lean meats, low-fat dairy options, and more plant-based proteins to balance it out. This diet was key because it let them see what high dietary cholesterol does when high saturated fat isn't also in the picture.
Okay, makes sense. High cholesterol, low saturated fat. And the third diet?
The third was the egg-free diet. This one flipped it again. The goal here was low cholesterol intake, about 300 milligrams a day, and 0 eggs allowed.
Oh,
But it kept the saturated fat intake high, back up to that 12% of daily energy. They used things like butter, full-fat yogurt, but made sure to avoid other high cholesterol foods like, say, shellfish.
right. So low cholesterol, high saturated fat. Okay, you've got these three really distinct dietary patterns. Control, high eggosat fat, and no eggosat fat. Very clever setup.
Exactly. It really allowed them to pinpoint the effects.
So after all that, what was the big reveal? What happened to the low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, the bad stuff?
Well, the first part wasn't too surprising. The diet's high in saturated fat. So the control diet and the egg-free high-sat fat diet both led to an increase in low-density lipoprotein cholesterol levels.
Okay, that tracks with what we generally hear, right? Saturated fat raises bad cholesterol.
It does. That finding reinforces current understanding.
But I sense there's a but coming. What are the egg diet? The one high in cholesterol but low in saturated fat.
That's where it got really interesting. That diet, the egg diet, actually led to a reduction in low-density lipoprotein cholesterol compared to the control.
Wow. Okay, so eating 2 eggs a day in a low saturated fat context lowered bad cholesterol.
That's what they found. It really turns the old advice on its head. Remember Jonathan Buckley?
The exercise scientist, yeah.
He had that great line, "You could say we've delivered hard-boiled evidence in defense of the humble egg."
Love it. So the evidence points away from the egg itself.
It strongly suggests that cholesterol from eggs, when you're not also eating a ton of saturated fat alongside it, doesn't have that negative impact on low-density lipoprotein that saturated fat clearly does. It shifts the focus.
So this is huge for breakfast, right? It means maybe you don't need to ditch the eggs.
Exactly.
It's the bacon, the sausage, maybe the butter on the toast. Those are the things likely driving up the bad cholesterol more significantly.
That seems to be the implication, yes. It could really be a game changer for people who love eggs but have been scared off them for years.
Okay, but you mentioned the study went deeper. It wasn't just about total low-density lipoprotein.
Right. What's fascinating here is they also looked at something called apolipoprotein, ApoB for short.
ApoB, okay, what's that?
Think of it this way. Low-density lipoprotein cholesterol measures the amount of cholesterol inside the bad particles. ApoB measures the actual number of those potentially harmful particles themselves. And many experts now think ApoB is actually a better predictor of cardiovascular risk.
Because it counts all the potentially bad delivery trucks, not just how much cargo is in some of them.
That's a decent analogy, yeah. It gives a better sense of the total burden of these particles. And the study found that the egg diet significantly reduced ApoB levels compared to the control diet.
So another point in favor of the low sat fat, high egg approach. It reduces the number of these risky particles.
It does. And that further strengthens the idea that saturated fat is the main driver of those negative changes in our lipid profiles, not necessarily the cholesterol from eggs in a low-sat fat diet.
Okay, this is sounding pretty positive for eggs within that context.
Yeah.
But you also hinted it gets more complex.
Yes. Here's where it gets really interesting and, well, a bit more nuanced. It's not quite as simple as just low-density lipoprotein is always better.
How so?
While the egg diet did lower the overall low-density lipoprotein cholesterol number, it also caused some shifts in the types or sizes of those low-density lipoprotein particles.
Okay. Particle sizes. Tell me more.
So imagine low-density lipoprotein particles come in different sizes. Some are larger and fluffier, others are smaller and denser. The egg diet was found to reduce the concentration of the large, generally less harmful, low-density lipoprotein particles. Think of them as maybe big, slow-moving vans, less likely to cause traffic jams in your arteries.
Okay, reducing those, is that good or bad?
Well, reducing any low-density lipoprotein is generally seen as okay, but those large ones are considered less atherogenic, less likely to contribute to plaque buildup.
Right, but what else happened?
At the same time, the egg diet led to an increase in the concentration of the small, dense, low-density lipoprotein particles.
And those are the ones we worry about more.
Generally, yes, these smaller, denser particles are thought to be more atherogenic. They're like nimble little scooters that can more easily penetrate the artery wall and contribute to plaque. So the total number went down, which is good, but the proportion shifted towards these potentially more problematic, smaller particles.
Okay. So a decrease overall, but a potentially less favorable shift in the type of particles remaining. That definitely adds a layer of complexity.
It really does. It highlights that just looking at the total low-density lipoprotein number doesn't always tell the whole story.
And did they look at high-density lipoprotein, the good cholesterol, too?
They did. And interestingly, the total high-density lipoprotein levels didn't really change significantly across the diets.
Okay.
But similar to the low-density lipoprotein story, when they looked deeper at specific subspecies of high-density lipoprotein, they found something. The egg diet led to lower concentrations of certain high-density lipoprotein components, like one called H4.
H4, another subtype. Why does a reduction in a part of good cholesterol matter? Isn't always better?
Not necessarily. High-density lipoprotein is complex, and different parts do different jobs. Other research suggests that lower levels of this specific H4 subspecies might be linked to a slightly increased risk of things like heart attack or ischemic stroke.
Slightly increased risk. How much are we talking?
For someone typical in the study, it might translate to roughly a 1.9% increased risk associated with that specific H4 reduction. It's not huge, but it's, noticeable.
So let me see if I've got this straight. The egg diet lowers overall bad cholesterol, low-density lipoprotein, and the number of bad particles, ApoB, which is good,
Correct.
but it also shifts the bad cholesterol towards smaller, maybe riskier particles, and it reduces a specific part of the good cholesterol that might be protective.
You've got it. It's a mix. It shows just how intricate the body's response to diet is. You push here, something else shifts over there. It's not always a simple, clear-cut win across every single marker.
Fascinating. Okay, so we have these compelling but also nuanced findings. Like with any study, though, we need to talk about strengths and weaknesses,
Yeah.
right, to put it all in context.
That's absolutely crucial.
On the plus side, we already mentioned that really strong study design, the randomized controlled crossover thing, that really boosts confidence in the results, doesn't it? Minimizes bias, uses people as their own controls.
Definitely a major strength. That design is about as good as it gets for this type of nutrition research.
But what about the caveats? What do we need to keep in mind?
Well, first, while the design was strong, the number of people who completed everything was 48. That's not tiny, especially for a crossover study, but, larger studies always help confirm findings and make them more generalizable.
And it was done in healthy adults.
Yes, healthy adults with normal baseline cholesterol. So we need to be cautious about applying these results directly to people who already have high cholesterol or other metabolic issues. More research is definitely needed in those groups.
Makes sense.
What else?
There's the fact that diet tracking relied on self-recorded food records. People tried to be accurate, but let's be honest, remembering every single thing you ate in the exact portion size. It's tough. There's always a potential for slight inaccuracies there.
Yeah, that's a common challenge in nutrition studies, isn't it?
It is. And then perhaps the biggest limitation, though it's really more of an insight, is that complex interplay we just discussed. The fact that lowering overall low-density lipoprotein came with those shifts in particle size and the high-density lipoprotein subspecies.
Exactly. Finding that a diet doing something good here might also cause subtle shifts elsewhere that could potentially offset some of the benefit. That's not a flaw in the study itself. It's a reflection of biological reality.
It just shows nutrition isn't simple math. It's complex biology.
Precisely. It's a dynamic system. You can't just look at one number in isolation.
And one last thing, funding. It's always good to know who paid for the research.
Right. And transparency is key here. The paper clearly states it got funding from the Egg Nutrition Center.
Okay.
But importantly, the authors also explicitly state the funder had zero role in designing the study, analyzing the data, or writing the paper. That firewall is standard practice and important for scientific integrity.
Good to clarify. Okay, so after wading through all this detail, the design, the findings, the nuances, the limitations, what's the bottom line? What should someone listening take away from this deep dive?
I think the main practical takeaway is pretty encouraging for egg fans, actually. For healthy adults, eating 2 eggs a day within a diet that's low in saturated fat overall doesn't seem to raise bad cholesterol. In fact, the study suggests it might even lower it.
So the focus really shifts back to the other sources of saturated fat.
It really does. Based on this evidence, the bigger concern for heart health remains that high intake of saturated fats from things like fatty meats, processed foods, full-fat dairy, butter, etc. This study helps pinpoint that it's likely those things, more than the eggs themselves, driving negative cholesterol changes for many people.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, how one food item, the egg, can be at the center of so much debate. The reality is so much more about the whole dietary pattern. What stands out most to you from this?
For me, it's that reminder of biological complexity. We love simple answers, eat this, not that. But this study shows even positive changes aren't always simple. Lowering low-density lipoprotein but shifting particle size, changing high-density lipoprotein subtypes. It reveals these subtle trade-offs.
Yeah.
True health understanding, I think, comes from appreciating that complexity, not just grabbing on to the easy headlines. It pushes us to think more holistically about how we eat and how our bodies respond in interconnected ways.
That's a great point. It's not just about one number, but the whole symphony. So maybe the question for you, the listener, is, how does this detailed look change how you think about your own diet? Not just eggs, but the whole picture.
Yeah, thinking about the interplay of different foods and nutrients.
Exactly. Well, this has been incredibly insightful. Thank you for breaking down such a complex study for us.
My pleasure. It's fascinating stuff.
We really hope this deep dive gave you some food for thought.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Until next time, stay curious.
Thanks for tuning in to the Health Headliner podcast by To Digital. Like and subscribe for more health news and breakthroughs. Stay healthy and informed. See you next time.